A few weeks back, I was in a conversation with a startup founder. Without going into too much detail about what they were doing, at a high level, this is what they were looking at. So, in the industry that they were working in, which is a multi billion dollar industry, they were looking at developing an AI based image processing system which would be able to detect fraud and reduce pilferage. And this system would essentially consume data from transaction systems and supplement it with high resolution images to be able to detect this fraud. Their teams had worked on several projects involving image analytics and developing algorithms to detect fraud. And over that period, they had developed deep expertise in this space. And they were looking at now productizing this idea. The conversation then moved on to how they plan to approach this. And their thought was to first develop a transaction system which would generate the data and then build the fraud detection layer on top of that. So my first question to them was how long it would take to develop all of this. So the founder went on to tell me that it would take about 3 to 4 weeks to develop the fraud detection system, and about 6 months to be able to develop the transaction processing system. Now, one thing I have learned over the years is that when a tech person tells you that it takes about 6 months to develop something, they really have no clue. They're just giving you a number. Of course, I didn't tell him that, but I went on to ask two follow up questions. One, how confident he was about developing this transaction system in a period of 6 months, considering that their customers had been using these systems for several years. How confident they were about developing something as robust and as mature in a period of 6 months. And the second question I had was about how confident the founder was about convincing the customers to shift from existing systems to a new system which has not been really tried in the market. The answer to both these questions were not a very confident yes. So I went on to ask a third follow up question, which is about why was it critical to develop this transaction system in the first place? Why not look at in developing an interface which could consume a flat file or a data feed from this transaction system and do your magic with the fraud detection on top of that on that data. Right. When I asked this question, I could see a light bulb go off in the founder's mind. And by taking this approach of not developing the transaction system, we had four major advantages. One, your time to market was reducing significantly. Instead of taking 6 months of effort in an area where you did not have a lot of skills, you would be able to go to market within a period of 3 to 4 weeks, and that too working in a domain where you have a lot of expertise, which is in the area of image processing and fraud detection. The second was by focusing on this, you are focusing on the core value proposition that you are betting on. By getting customers to try this out, you would get immediate feedback on whether fraud was really a problem for these customers or not. The third major advantage was reducing the friction in customer adoption. Now, when you ask customers to replace systems that they've been using for several years with a new untested system, it's going to be a hard sell. Whereas if you can tell them that you continue to use those systems but try this layer on top, now that's a much easier sell. You're reducing that friction to trying. And last but not the least, the fourth advantage was that by not developing the transaction system, you were no longer going head to head with existing players in the market. Rather, you are coming in as a value added partner who would work with existing players in the market. Now, instead of taking them on as competitors, you are becoming partners, which would open a ton of go to market opportunities once you were able to prove this concept. One of the biggest mistakes product teams often make while trying to develop a system or planning a platform migration is to try and do everything in one go. But what you want to be doing is taking it chunk by chunk and working on the most critical pieces one at a time. In the last couple of videos, we had explored the beachhead market strategy. Now, trying to build this transaction system and then building the fraud detection on top of that is like the Allied troops trying to land their troops in the heartland of Germany as part of World War II. Not something you want to take head on. When you're working on your minimum viable product, what you really want to be doing is to flesh out the end to end solution, think about the user experience, and then strip it out and focus on the most valuable pieces that are required to prove that your value proposition is indeed valuable to the customers. If you're working on a minimum viable product and taking a product to market and would like to chat about it, do give me a shout and I'd be happy to set up some time. In the next couple of videos, we'll be exploring a few of my favorite minimum viable product examples from over the years. These examples continue to inspire product teams to this day, and I'm sure you will find them insightful as well. If you like this video, do give it a like. Thank you and have a good evening.